Claim is a human-enabled element that essentially you need to be there for your policyholders. It's a promise. It's legal robbery up until you need it,
right.
And then that robber is your best friend,
exactly.
right?
Welcome to the Elevating Leaders series, where we go beyond the headlines and straight to the people who are redefining insurtech and business transformation. We've caught up with the visionaries and the pioneers that are currently driving the industry forward, bringing you exclusive insights, strategies, and stories you won't hear anywhere else. If you're ready to go deeper, this is your front row seat to the future of insurance. I'm Miguel Edwards, and this is 5 Minutes.
Well, Awais, thanks so much for joining us here on this 5-minute podcast here at ITC.
So excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome.
This is awesome setup. Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
We're trying, content is king, as my marketing coach tells me. That's what we were doing. But I've got a question that I ask everybody that I speak with, that especially in our little industry. What the heck got you into insurance?
It was an accident, just like most people, right?
Of course.
And for me, it was my insurance agent trying to get me to come to the industry. And I told her I don't want to work for her because insurance is legal robbery. Is exactly what my words were to her. And she said, haha, you're a good salesperson, come in and work for me. I said, I'm never selling insurance. She said, my husband is in claims. You should go talk to him. I've never met her husband, but long story short, I thought it was going to be a 6-month thing. And 16, 17 years later, I'm still in the industry.
And then amazing. Magically. That's just like, it's the same story for everybody I talk to. It's like you just fall into it, You fall in love, you're captured, and then you have no escape.
That's it.
Yeah, I love it. But you mentioned claims, and so that seems to be your bag. That's kind of your area of specialty, at least for the moment. Talk to us a little bit about your role and what you're currently doing, and the dynamics that you're seeing now from a claims perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background has actually all been in claims.
Okay.
So claim operations, anything from front office to back office transformation. I had an opportunity to start a claims department for a Berkshire Hathaway company. Phenomenal experience.
Wow.
So with that being said, I think claims in itself right now with my role, I'm focused on building the future of claims at Crawford and Company.
Okay.
So I'm quite passionate about it. There's a lot of changes happening in our industry, right? There's a lot of noise. We'll talk about the AI and generative AI, but claims is more than just that, right? Claim is a human-enabled element that essentially you need to be there for your policyholders. You yourself, we're talking about Florida, and all those policyholders, they need somebody to talk to. They need somebody to be able to be there for them. It's a promise. It's legal robbery up until you need it,
right.
And then that robber is your best friend,
exactly.
Right? You're picking up the phone and calling them and saying, "Give me my money back."
Yep.
And that's kind of the focus where I am at. I feel like it's noble work. I do a lot of nonprofit work outside of insurance, and it's rewarding to be on the claims element of it. I've spent 6 years in catastrophe. So going to places, seeing people's homes demolished, getting them coverage and figuring out what's approved, what's denied. How do you educate those people? How do you associate with those people? As a claims adjuster, you may never experience a loss. You see it so frequently, it becomes just a normal routine, just like a cop, right? I mean, it's one of those pieces of work where you don't know until you really go through it yourself.
For sure.
I didn't know until I went through a claim myself, and I'm like, is this what insurance companies do?
Yeah. No, it makes a ton of sense. It reminds me of my experience at Allstate. I remember doing a ride along with an agent where we delivered a life insurance check to a widow.
Oh, wow.
And that's when insurance clicked for me.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this woman, and by the way, really kind of interesting, by the way, and I want you to talk a little bit about that, especially in the catastrophe space. Insurance is something no one wants to buy. No one's actively saying, oh, I want to buy insurance. No one wants to pay their monthly premiums, right? So every interaction with an insurance company is based off of some negative experience, right? And then you have a claim.
Yep.
Is this an opportunity for now insurance as an industry, your company, to redeem itself?
I think so. I think that's the only time you're going to have a positive impact. Even then, you have a lot of the third parties that are trying to influence and
That's
saying
right.
Insurance companies are robbing you. They're not paying you enough money.
Yep.
You have a negative view from various different entities, right? Trying to, whether it's legal or non-legal companies coming to you as a policyholder and saying they're not giving you what you're worth. They're not giving you what the claim is worth. I think it's a great opportunity for insurance companies to come through and demonstrate the value that they bring. I had an adjuster who got us a 5-star review on a claim that we denied. It was a total loss claim, and it was fully denied. I think it was like $400,000 policy, and he received a 5-star review. And it was simple as listening to the customer and understanding what were the true needs of that person. They didn't have specific type of coverage. And I think it's beyond that, right? I think it's not necessarily where you're just explaining, hey, this is where it says on page number 548 that you don't have coverage. It's about walking them through and explaining to them why it's not covered, what other avenues you have. You're truly an advocate for the policyholder.
So you started off by talking about the incredibly human element, and it's a very human aspect of the overall insurance lifecycle. But now we've got to talk about how we bring technology now in to help with those interactions. Interestingly enough, today in one of the kickoff events, Red Hand Advisors did a whole RIMIS their survey that they do every every year, and they talk about how habitually claims is the most underinvested portion of every company, of every insurance company. Validate that. Do you think that that's true? And then, how does that jive with some of the trends you're seeing?
I think it's true to a certain degree. Are companies investing in claims departments? Yes, right? I think, are they investing as much as what's going into the underwriting departments? No, right? I mean, underwriting is bringing in the revenue.
Right.
Our focus is only claims. So we're the industry's claims department. And, my charge from my global CEO is to make sure we're investing heavily into the things that are actually going to make an impact, right? We're talking about technology. Everybody's jumping on the bandwagon of AI and generative AI. It can solve this for you. It can solve that for you, right? Just like the computers came. The computers didn't solve anything. It's all the specific things that those companies needed the computers to do. That's what solved the problem.
Right.
And I think just because you throw technology at it, just because you throw a process at it, doesn't mean it's going to be the solution. The solution itself has to be very unique and specific to the need. We're investing very heavily into building the future of claims because that's all we do, and that is our revenue generator. For insurance companies, it may not be as heavy of a focus, but I think companies are coming around to it because now you're seeing these massive litigated matters that are coming through. You're seeing nuclear verdicts coming along, and I think companies are realizing that they need to step up and they need to do something different.
Sure. No, that makes sense. So when you think about that investment, always like where is that investment really materializing from a tech perspective? Is it in the AI front, or is it just in kind of run of the mill automation and business process automation? Like where are you seeing a lot of that investment?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I think every single company is investing in AI today.
Yeah, right.
If they're not, then they're fooling themselves or fooling the public. But at the end of the day, I think everybody knows that it's needed. But I think we haven't, as an industry or as a world, like everybody in this world hasn't figured out what exactly can we use that towards.
Okay.
You have all of these smaller pocket solutions that have been developed, but there's not a cohesive view of how all these solutions come together. And I think that's the missing piece. You can solve for letter writing, for example, through a platform. You could solve for, adjudication or intake or anything like that. But how do you embed all of that together? And how do you make that experience for your policyholders? How do you make that experience for your adjusters, your underwriters? And how do you make that experience overall as a whole to make sure that people don't really sit there and think about that, hey, I'm using generative AI. And I think that's where the disconnect is, because anybody that's used ChatGPT can attest to, you sat there for a half hour and you searched for things that mean nothing to you. Is that really productive?
Right.
You got to have that technology embedded into your solution, embedded into your process.
Beautiful, beautiful segue. Now going back and bringing the human back into the discussion.
Yeah.
What are we doing as an industry to really think about upskilling so that we are leveraging these tools? And let's marry that to the talent crisis that we hear all about. And then add one more piece to it. Everybody sets their hair on fire about how AI is going to steal my job.
Yep.
So that whole soup, like how are we thinking about human capital in the insurance space from a technology innovation perspective?
Look, I think people always get scared of things, right? If it's something different, it's in our human nature to get scared of it. When the printing press came out, we thought that, we're going to become dumb. Nobody's going to be able to remember everything.
Right.
And now look where we are.
Right.
When the technology sector came through, is like, okay, all these jobs are going to go through, but yet IT sector is the most employed sector in the world, right? And I think with that being said, looking at working your question backwards is, I think it's to get away from these massive, big transformation efforts in organization and saying, hey, there's something big coming. For example, when you get an update in iPhone, you don't pick up the phone and call Apple and say, hey, why did you do this? right. You don't do those things. I think we're becoming so used to this fast release of content that's coming to us, this fast release of change that's coming to us, that it feels okay to do.
Okay.
And I think that's where there's going to be a magic bullet to saying the adjusters or the underwriters or any agent that's utilizing the platform has no understanding, no connectivity with what's happening in the behind the scenes, but yet it's making their job so easy that they don't even have to think twice. For example, if you're an adjuster and you pull up your claim file, and when you're looking at it, you have all the file notes, you have all the payments. Then all of a sudden, you got this little box that's telling you a summary of, hey, here are 3 things you need to do. Nobody needed to teach that person how to utilize it.
Sure.
But you enable that person when they're on the phone to be able to understand and saying, hey, this helped me. Then they become your advocates. But when you go in with this motion of, hey, we're going to do this big launch of this generative AI tool that we now have gotten, and it's going to transform the way we work and the way we operate. I think those days are gone.
Okay.
Because historically, you did need to do big bang pushes, right? But now you can do so much of it all in smaller chunks that it should be seamless.
I love that. So I'm hearing the incremental trend is really the way to go.
Yeah.
And that kind of solves for the change management dynamic as well. Cool. So I want to go back now to technology once again. You talked about a use case to me that sounds a little bit like a kind of a co-pilot type of use case, right? As you think about claims and you think about AI, and by the way, I actually want to make sure we hone in on generative AI because there's a lot of confusion. I'd be happy, by the way, if you want to explain the differences. But generative AI within the claims space, what are some of the other use cases beyond just Copilot that you think we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, so generative AI, it's predicting what's going to happen in a claim.
Okay.
Right? It's really going to that future step without us getting there. So how can you leverage that behavior? And I think that's where it gets a little bit tricky because no 2 claims are the same, right? And I think that's a lot of push that you get back from claims leaders and saying there's no way a fire loss that happened in Texas is the same as a fire loss that happens in Florida based off of the material and so on and so forth. Even on the same street, it's different. And I think it really boils back down to how do we use that generative AI to aid instead of saying this is the concrete evidence of what should happen.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people have this misconception that it has to happen this way, and it does not.
Right.
It can. This is an option. This is the way it can go based off of the information that's available today. But tomorrow, when you have that information available, that's telling you something different. And generative AI doesn't do what our brain does today, right? It's taking a look at it. It's saying, hey, this is a bottle of water and I need to turn this to open it. And if I pour it upside down when it's not open, it's going to spill. Same situation is like computers now taking a look at all of your information and then collecting it for you for your own organization. And then it's collecting it, outside of your organization to say, here are all the predictive models based off of where the route of the claim can go. I think it's helpful to understand that it will benefit, but it is not the solution. I think people that are going to fail is when they look at it and say, this is the core solution.
Right. No, that makes sense. So going back now, flipping back and forth between humans and technology, going back as an insurance professional, as a claims professional, what are some of the things I need to be thinking about to upskill myself so that I can be part of an innovation team like yours, as I'm thinking about my discipline, my subject matter expertise? What do I have to do to round the curve?
I think look at what's available, but don't trust it all, right?
Okay.
It's media. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of news. Play with it yourself. Be open. I think that's the common answer that you're going to get to that. Like, what can I do to upskill? I think it goes beyond that. You have to change your mindset. I give this example to people is like, it's all about change management. And if you take the same route to work every single day, and you don't go a different route, you're not going to change your mindset. Like if you can't do simple tasks as, you get up, you go to the gym, and then if you can't change your routine, you're not going to be able to do this. I do this exercise with people. For example, I'll do it with you.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I want you to take your hands.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead, close your hands.
Okay.
Okay. Now take a look at it and see if your left thumb is over your right thumb.
My left thumb is over my right thumb.
Okay. If your left thumb is over your right thumb, that means you're a very compassionate person.
Okay.
All right. Now try to switch it. Ready? Go. It's tricky.
It's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
It's very difficult. I love that.
So a simple task like that, you're trying to think like, hey, so if your right thumb is over your left, that means you're an intelligent person. But if you have both of your thumbs together, that means you're a loving person, right?
Okay.
So
can I be intelligent and compassionate simultaneously?
You can. You can be all three of those things, right? Compassion, loving. So just simple tasks like that where you cannot adjust your mind. You have to slow down. You have to think about it. It's the same concept I think we have to develop. We have to train our brain before we can train, to adopt new technology. It's easy to go to Harvard. It's easy to go to Google, and they've got all these courses, and you can learn all you need to do. Like, you don't need to learn the LLMs. You need to learn how to adapt and how to be accepting of the available tools that you have and utilize them and encourage others as well.
I'll plug that just with my own experience always, because I would like to think of myself as a prodigious user of ChatGPT, unashamed of it. I use it in nearly every element of everything that I do, from consulting to content creation. And what I find is that the challenge for me is to come up with new and creative ways to leverage it. And it's forcing me to become a more creative person. Maybe that's kind of why I'm over here left over right, right? But 100%. So I marry that to your topic in terms of that's really where we need to go, is thinking about the uses of it and becoming more innovative. That's kind of what I'm picking up.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I think
good. So let me, we're at ITC, we're in Vegas, right? Yeah. We're being good so far. We haven't left the hotel compound yet, right? What are you looking to get out of this event? What are you here to see? What do you think you're going to find? Just give us an overview of what your experience should be like.
Kind of reverse on what I said, right? Which is that there's a lot of embedded, individual solutions. And I think it's important to have those solutions. But the challenge that I have is, how do we plug all that together?
Got it.
So I'm looking to see what are carriers doing? What are, the solutions that are existing today? And how are they modernizing the way we work?
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the key for me, is to take a look at the different vendors that are out there, learning what other people's experience have been, listening to some of these talks, from carriers that have implemented, listening to use cases. So that it's a learning experience for me, learning from people like you, and what other people are doing, right? And I think we as an industry don't do a good job of being so collected. We're two degrees of separation in the insurance industry,
right?
But we don't leverage that enough, and we have the whole world against us as an industry to say, hey, you guys are crooks and you guys are taking advantage of us. You're taking my money. You're legally robbing me. So I'll end with that.
I love it. No, that's good stuff always. And I'm so encouraged, that there's folks like you. I'm going to put myself, I'm a little bit older than you, but I'm going to put myself in your bucket too. I'm a lither bit older than you.
Yeah, you are. I may be older than you.
I doubt it. But I think it's folks like us, because you talk about that networking and that interconnectedness, and I think we do that thing naturally. And I feel like that's the change we're going to bring to the industry. How do we bring that interconnectedness to one another so that we can share how we're using solutions, how we're using best practices? I feel like we're a much more sharing kind of, new guard that's coming in. So I'm really, really excited for what the industry has, man.
Yeah, no, I'm excited as well.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining this episode of 5 Minutes. If you've enjoyed our discussion, we'd love for you to share it with anyone else you think might find it interesting. Also, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, and hit that bell to stay on top of the game with our practical 5-minute episodes. We look forward to seeing you again next week.